Guys, it's Manga time once again here to bring you my review of Bleach 666, Bigger, Louder, Stronger. As I suspected, it's just a battle chapter. It's a pretty basic battle chapter. Some neat stuff happens, but overall it's fairly basic. As I suspected, the Gerard fight is pretty much just going to be a fight of brute force, which is a little bit of a shame. Like, I really hope this fight doesn't last ages, because then it feels like those chapters should have been used for to give Urahara a proper fight. It does kind of seem like Kubo's just like, here are the fan favourites with this battle, watch them dice up this Quincy that no one cares about. So I hope that this fight is actually at least somewhat interesting. This first chapter's not been bad, it's just not been particularly good. It's not like super stellar or anything like that. Now, annoyingly, Kubo starts off the chapter with a flashback, and it's possibly one of the most pointless flashbacks we've ever had. It's literally a page and a half of Kenpachi getting out of the healing capsule. It annoys me that Kubo does that and then won't even bother to give Askin a flashback, so that's annoying. But it literally, it has taken me all day to work out what's going on the bottom panel of the first page. It doesn't help that I've been reading off my phone for most of the day because I was at work, so the pictures were tiny, but I thought maybe it was Kenpachi jumping out of the capsule, but no, it's just actually him kicking the door off. So the door goes like flying and Kenpachi steps out, and that's the page, that's the first page. Literally is Kenpachi stepping out of the capsule, so yeah. We then cut over to Ikkaku and Yumichika, who are obviously still running from the battle with Pernida, and they've just caught up to where Gerard is. And they're surprised to see that Kenpachi has got there before them. So clearly Clearly, Kenpachi has been healed in the space of like 10 minutes. Unless Lil and Askin's fight lasted way longer than it seems, but I don't know, it's a bit weird. I can only assume that Miuri is going to be relatively close behind. You can't really see what's going on with the other capsules, but I can only assume that Miuri is not far away. Anyway, it starts off with... Oh, actually, no. Actually, one thing I want to bring up is, now that Ikkaku and Yumichika have arrived on the scene, I would love to see them finally address the whole Ikkaku and Yumichika both hiding things from each other and from Kenpachi. I'd love to see them, you know, go Bankai for Ikkaku, go Ruiro Kujaku for Yumichika. That would be really cool. Anyway, Gerard's obviously had his arm cut off by Kenpachi, and as we pretty much thought, he gets it back, like, immediately. It reforms in almost as an object of light, so it's very similar to Lil Barrow. So I do wonder if Gerard is going to be as difficult to bring down as Lil was, if he's going to be quite as OP. His body, his arm reforms, and he's like, you know, my right arm is now even bigger and stronger than before. And I think it's funny that Kubo's given him little shields on his knuckles. That's funny. But yeah, I mean, I love the panel actually where he's like, you know, it's more powerful than ever before, because it's actually really well drawn, I think. And Gerard does come across as quite godly. I have to admit that I think Gerard looks actually more original now that he doesn't have his mask on and he's got like the thorn crown thing and everything going on. So actually Gerard, I've got to admit, looks kind of cool. In terms of the outlandish, silly-looking Quincy, he's probably my favourite one. But then his only real competition is masked and masculine. So anyway... Byakuya and Toshiro are looking on, and Toshiro's like, you know, what just happened here? And Byakuya explains, you know, this is the power of the miracle. Any part of Gerard that's wounded or, you know, cut off regenerates and comes back even more powerful. To which Hitsugaya cracks another joke, which is strange, but he's like, you know, I'm guessing he was a lot smaller when this battle began. It's not so much a joke, but Byakuya says, you know, oh, you have a rather disturbing fixation on height. Anyway, Kenpachi's like, I don't really care about any of this, you know, if that's how his ability works, let's see what happens when I cut him into little pieces. And, you know, people wonder why I'm not that big a fan of Kenpachi. This is one of the reasons. His character has not developed. He is exactly the same as he has ever been. And if that's what you like, more power to you. But it just pisses me off that Kenpachi has had so many battles in this series and he hasn't learned a damn thing. You know, at least Byakuya has changed. You know, Byakuya is not the same person he was when this series began. Kenpachi is no different. He literally just got owned by Pernida, and he's doing the exact same thing again. So, frankly, deserves everything that comes towards him. Now, I have to admit, this is quite a nice little bit of character interaction here. Toshiro blocks Kenpachi's attack, and I was like, whoa, what the hell? And Kenpachi's like, what the hell are you doing? The only reason you're not dead is because I pulled back at the last second. And Hitsugai is like, you need to not do this. If you make Gerard even bigger now, what would happen if he was to fall off of this place? He would obliterate Soul Society. And I tell you what, I'm glad Kubo addressed that, because I feel like that's something a lot of us have kind of thought might happen. Gerard might fall off, and then what would happen if that did happen? And I do kind of wonder if this is foreshadowing Gerard might still end up falling off the Royal Realm. I could possibly still see that happening. Gerard then tries to step on them both, and I want to bring up something yet again. Yet again, Gerard has a different foot. This is quite jarring now, actually. It's starting to get a little bit weird. Kubo, not only is he making art errors, but they're different every time. I think it's when, I'm trying to remember, it's like chapter 635, Gerard, you see him like skidding to a halt next to the edge of the Warvelt, and his shoes are like covered in bandages. Essentially, they're like straps. The next time you see his foot, and I know that I've got this, I know I'm talking about a character's feet here, but when the art mistakes are this weird, I feel like it's worth pointing out. The next time you see a close-up of his foot is when he grows massive for the first time in 655, I think it is. He no longer has the bands, but he's just wearing a solid boot. Now he doesn't even have a boot on, he's got a sandal on. You actually can see his foot. So, I don't know, Kubo clearly just forgets what his feet look like and draws them new every time, I guess, but it's a bit jarring. Anyway, he tries to step on them, but somehow Kenpachi is holding him up. I think Kubo probably does enjoy writing Kenpachi, because he can just basically say fuck you to everything in the story. Kenpachi just does kind of play by his own rules, and it must be fairly liberating as a writer just to be able to go, actually, you know what, Kenpachi could probably stop this, so I'm going to have that happen. So Kenpachi grabs Gerard and then kind of throws him, which is even more impressive than Komamura throwing Choning Po. Well, I don't know, I'm trying to... Gerard is definitely taller than Choning Po, yeah. When you see Gerard collapse against the buildings, you actually do realise how big he is. Because his... I don't know, actually, is that... I'm thinking maybe that this perspective of this picture is really weird. Because one of the last times we saw Gerard, he was leaning on a building. Now, admittedly, he was taller than that one, but there was plenty taller than him. Whereas, if this picture is to be believed, most buildings now only reach his shin. So, that's pretty crazy. Kenpachi's like, I didn't come here for a lecture. If you're not ready to go big or go home, then I'm going to see what the inside of his head looks like. And Kenpachi tries to attack Gerard's shield. Like, I don't know why he tries to... of all the places to attack, he goes straight for his shield. Rather expectantly, Gerard smacks him away, and Kenpachi literally goes flying across the Varvel. And as he does this, Gerard draws his sword, which is awesome, because I was hoping he would do this, and I was concerned that after he, went to this massive height, he wouldn't use his sword. But he does draw it, and he's like, you've got some obscene strength there. And I like that Gerard hasn't gone totally mental, and he's not going, oh, I'm godly, I'm divine. He's still retained his personality in that, he commends him. He's like, that's really impressive, but, you're just the type of person that takes pleasure in sadistic acts of cruelty, and for a powerful incarnation of darkness such as yourself, I suppose it is fitting that I allow my Hoffnung to rust just a bit. So the name of his blade is Hoffnung, which apparently means Sword of Hope, which is cool. It fits with Gerard's theme, his kind of Nordic theme. And then we see that Kenpachi is in the dust of this building. He's like, oh, a solid shield for a solid body, that just makes me want to cut it all the more. And then he activates Nozarashi, which is probably the coolest part of the whole chapter, to be honest, because there's definitely still a novelty to seeing Kenpachi use Shikai. And he's like, drink, and then there's a big explosion, and he's there with Nozarashi on his back, and he's like, Nozarashi. And I don't know about you, but I actually think this picture of him releasing Nozarashi is better than the one where he did it the first time against Gremmy. I just think it looks cooler. It looks better. It's got a better perspective going on. The one where he does it against Gremmy is just so weird, because you see it from the back of him, and then the sword is like fucking massive. Whereas here it looks cool, he looks demonic, and actually looks very interesting. He's also no longer wearing an eye patch. I don't think that's an art mistake. I imagine it got knocked off when he got sent flying, so he's now at full power. So Kenpachi using an eye patch and a Shikai is quite exciting in a way. I don't think he's going to get a Bankai. For all you guys out there that think he will, I just don't think so. It seems ludicrous to me. But anyway, Hitsugai, I'm glad that we get some reaction to this. Hitsugai is like, oh my god, what is that, his Shikai? You know, when the hell did Zaraki learn that? And now this is, lore-wise, probably the most interesting part of the chapter. It certainly raises the most questions. Byakuya says, so then our assumption that his katana was constantly in its release form was erroneous. Rather, it means that the constantly released form, as we call it, never even existed to begin with. Okay. For Kenpachi, that definitely makes sense. The jagged blade that he has is the Asauchi that he picked up as a child. Ichigo's, however, is definitely more confusing. So, if constant release Shikai has never existed, then what does that make Ichigo's old Zangetsu? Is that just an Asauchi? But I'm pretty certain Oetsu said that Ichigo never had an Asauchi, so surely Ichigo has a constant release Shikai. Otherwise, I don't know what else it means. And I also wonder what this means for Yachiru, if anything else, because I'm pretty sure at this point most of us are in agreement that Yachiru is probably going to turn out to be Kenpachi's Zanpakuto spirit. But anyway, we get a cool picture of Gerard rushing at Kenpachi. It is cool to see Nozarashi again. We get some cool, dynamic panels. I like the use of perspective here when Gerard clashes with Kenpachi, and Kenpachi's like tiny, and Gerard brings his blade down. And Nozarashi looks cool, man. I like seeing Nozarashi clashing with another blade, because obviously Gremmy, for whatever reason, didn't fight properly. So it is cool to see them sword fighting. They then seem to break away from each other. I have to admit that Gerard looks really weird in this panel, like his sword and his shield are too small for him, so he's sort of like that. But he breaks away from Kenpachi, and then Kenpachi tries to jump at him again, but Gerard's like, foolish oath, you've nicked the blade of Hoffnung. And we see that Gerard's sword has a small crack in it. And then Kenpachi is rather surprised as he's almost basically split in half. And that's the end of the chapter. So there's loads of blood coming out of Kenpachi's stomach, and I think this ability is actually not going to be that difficult to explain. I think it's simply because we know that when Gerard takes damage, he converts that into strength. So I assume that when Hoffnung takes damage, it converts that into damage to the opponent. So what's happening here, I guess, is that Kenpachi is essentially being wounded by his own slash. I think it's as if Kenpachi cut himself. Which is why the wound is so bad. It looks incredibly severe, actually, I have to be honest. I know it's Kenpachi, but that is a pretty bad wound. I wouldn't be surprised if he was taken out of the fight. I'm not going to lie, I wouldn't be surprised. Because it looks like he's almost been bifurcated. So, Hoffnung, the blade of the Sword of Hope, I imagine it gives hope to Gerard, is what it actually means. It's not surprising as well that the damage given to Kenpachi was so great, because although the chip looks tiny, you have to remember how big Hoffnung is, therefore Kenpachi's chip has actually done quite a bit of damage to the sword. I imagine what's happened is that Hoffnung essentially reflects the owner's attack back at them, so Kenpachi has essentially cut himself. That's what I think's happened. But that is the end of the chapter. Like I said, not a particularly in deep chapter, I guess is the word I'm looking for. It's pretty simple, just a battle chapter. I am looking forward to a brute strength fight, as long as we get to see cool stuff. Nozarashi is cool, it's definitely, the novelty is still there to see Nozarashi. It does annoy me that Kenpachi hasn't learned a damn thing since his battle with Pernida, but it's cool to see, Hitsugaya being the rational one. I'm hoping we get more from Hitsugaya and Byakuya. I really still think there's a good chance of Shinji getting back on his feet and actually partaking, and I hope that kind of just lots of other people continue to partake as well. So I hope that there's more to this fight than what we're seeing now. It looks like Gerard's going to be tough to take down. Hopefully we learn more about the heart of the Soul King, although the way Kubo's been going we probably won't. But yeah, it was a decent chapter. I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. I thought it was okay. The artwork was good. The use of perspective was interesting. But it's just Kenpachi again. And for me, that's not a huge draw. But, I did enjoy it. And that's why it gets a 3.5. Let me know, guys, in the comments below what you thought of this week's chapter. Are you enjoying the fight so far? Is Kenpachi already taken out of the battle? And what do you think? Do you think I'm right about Hoffnung's ability to essentially reflect your attack against you? yeah, do let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, subscribe to the channel. I'd super appreciate the support. But until next time, guys, catch you later.